All right. Well, then let me start. Let me start by saying maybe I think it might be helpful for me to. Oftentimes, you'll see folks in my position, in a position of a teaching place, and you don't know a whole lot about how I got to where I am, and it's easy to sit here and to talk to people about, oh, well, meditate, it's going to make you feel better. And maybe you even get a sense that I have some experience in that. But the truth is that there was a time years ago where I was a mess. I was a mess, and that was what led me to this work. So, 18 years ago, kind of in the aftermath of, like in those kind of first years after 9/11, with having kind of dealing with the trauma, the collective trauma of that. I was here in New York. Um, I found myself in a position of being in a very stressful kind of place. I was working for a company that was a startup that in tech that was falling apart. I was in an incredible amount of debt, um, of which I was not sharing with the people around me, including my family. I had a new baby, and a nice little new child that I was raising, and I had everything in my life that was going right on the surface, but in the background of that, I was a mess. Um, and I had I had a complete breakdown. I had a complete breakdown around that time in my life of absolute kind of terror, um, intense anxiety, depression, and some of these things had been kind of following me all through my life, but this was like kind of one of those perfect storm moments. And I had an opportunity in that moment to make a choice of how I wanted to go forward and work with this. I didn't realize it at the time how important it was going to be of a choice. And I made a choice to, and with help and with people who started to come into my world, to start meditating, start practicing yoga. Um, and I did those things in the beginning as a way to try and just relax and to calm down the stress that I was having and to get some kind of clarity in my life about how to heal, not knowing that this would take me on a journey that would be lasting this whole rest of my life to this point. Um, Meditation began for me as a way to learn to relax, as a way to learn to help with my anxiety at the time. But what very quickly happened is it went into something even deeper, and it became the way in which I completely broke down, deprogrammed, stripped away all of like so many old beliefs, things that were limiting me in my life and moving forward. And it became meditation became this place where I would go sit to get some clarity and to understand and to deepen my awareness of myself, to know myself more deeply. And I came to understand also that that deepening process all just continues. It continues and continues, and the process is it's never over. It's never over. And it's also not something that is perfectly linear in the way it helps you to relax. In other words, it's not like every time I meditated, I was getting better and better and better and better and better and better and feeling healthier and healthier and healthier and healthier. It was more, I jokingly call it, it's like the stock market where it kind of goes up a little, then it kind of comes back a little. It goes up a little, it comes down a little. But generally it was an upward path with occasional real drops back, but then, that would last for a little while, and then I would keep moving up and up and up. And what would happen in those moments is I was kind of learning by contrast. So I would practice my asana, I would practice my meditation, I would like, study with in books and with teachers who would help me to understand myself and my defenses and my all the ways in which I've come to limit my access to my true self. And I would kind of get into that groove and maybe plateau a little bit and then maybe forget about it for a little while. And then I would start to kind of fall back into old habits. And so in that contrast, I'd hit some kind of place of old habits that wouldn't feel good. And then I would realize, oh, I used to feel better when I was doing it the other way. So that contrast was in, oh, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Let me go back to feeling, doing the practices that help me to feel strong again, connected. And then that would last a while, and then I might fall back again. And this happened over and over again over years. But because of my willingness to stay with it, what ended up happening was the time I would bounce away would get shorter and shorter, and the time I would come back would get longer and longer and longer. Eventually, through that process, a state of deepening presence formed, like a base level that never leaves anymore. This It doesn't mean I never get sad. It doesn't mean don't get angry. I do. All happens all the time. But I don't. It doesn't rule me anymore. It There's a place of, like, a base level line of peace that stays with me all the time, and that only comes from practice. Now, I'm going to say that, but then I'm also going to kind of push that aside for a moment. I'm going to say I know people who have been meditating their whole lives who are still very stressed and very have, it seems like you would not know that they were meditators. I know also people who meditated for like a month and it seems like their whole life completely changed and they opened up into this place of incredible self-awareness. I don't understand or know the reasons why that happens to some people, but I do know that there is a gift in this practice, regardless of how quick or how slowly it seems to be working within you. It is a lifelong process, and it's like brushing your teeth in the morning. It's like, taking a bath or taking a shower or, walking your dog. It's something you do it. You do it because there's no not doing it. And that's what I hope to give you a taste of in these next few, rest of these few weeks as we do this. So I've been talking a lot. Um, and yes, please, Heather, that's what I want to hear. I want questions. I wanted this to be more of a discussion before we do some meditation.
Um, where do you find the balance between, I guess, like allowing and letting whatever comes, whatever happens to be there, and a more like convicted, more intentional, almost forceful intention of practice, that something a little more rigorous, like a
Hmm.
training, I guess.
Hmm.
Like that's a
Yeah.
harsh word, but where do you find that balance
Yes.
between those two things? Because sometimes I feel
That's
like if I'm just letting what I'm doing, then it's like the dog, you have to train the puppy. I'm like letting the puppy run everywhere. Like, where do you find that? And opposingly, like not having this rigid, like forcing myself to come back to somewhere.
that's a super great question. Um, it's interesting because I mean, in addition to this, I'm a musician too, and so I have like a certain mindset about practice. Heather, I know you're a dancer. There's like this balance between the tapas, the tapaha, the fire work, and the allowing work. Um, I personally find that in the beginning of any endeavor and throughout its course, it can be extremely helpful to have a guide, a teacher, someone who's going to keep you on point. And that was my experience in the beginning of my practice. I was most, I made my greatest strides, for lack of a better word, when I had someone who was giving me homework that was keeping me honest. So there were like almost like little goals to hit, and that was very much an active practice. I was going to yoga at the time, 4 or 5 times a week. I was sitting every day, and I had someone who was kind of helping me understand how to do that practice. Um, I also, though, I can tend to have a little bit of an obsessive personality at times. So I also had to start realizing that incredible quote unquote dedication to this was getting in the way, though, of other parts of my life. It was alienating my wife at the time and my daughter. And as much, and in some ways I needed it, though, because I needed to like really do something drastic to heal where I was at. But I did have to realize in time that I needed to still be part of the world I was living in. I couldn't ignore it all for this practice. In fact, I needed the world out there to help me understand this practice even more and the people around me even more. Um, so I started to find that a a schedule was really good for my day-to-day sits, which would be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour at the time. Um, and I would recommend that for anyone. Find some time in your day to be disciplined and to create your daily practice. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, just give yourself the gift of that discipline, scheduling it in your calendar, setting your timer, doing those kind of things. Um, and then go live your life, you know, live your life in the most of your days. On top of that, though, I think it's beautiful to then schedule something more spread out and regular that can help you kind of keep you honest. In other words, a program. I teach in a program in upstate New York that we meet 5 times a year. You're with a group and you go with that group for 3 years. And it's all about learning to find who you are in yourself. So it's nice to find some kind of a program that keeps you accountable and that you touch in with from time to time, that gives you homework and helps you kind of do those things. The third thing that was very helpful for me, and even, and maybe some people can do some of these things, some they can't, but for me, I found retreats were very helpful. That once a year I would try and go someplace for 3 days and sit in silence, being guided by someone. Now, I know not everyone has this opportunity, and in this world right now, nobody maybe has this opportunity. But as a long-term goal and the arc of my own personal practice, I found that a daily practice that was very gentle and something I could just do and schedule, like meditation and maybe some movement, asana, if I have, even if I just did that by myself, combined with a, a program or some kind of thing where someone was teaching me on a regular basis and keeping me accountable to my practice. And then finally, some kind of annual or, so like an annual intention setting, an annual reset, a place where I could go and let go of the entire world, so that I could just be in myself and get to know myself better. That's how I approached it. Go ahead.
I think I mean like specifically within the moments of meditation.
Oh, that's a
So
very different thing.
where but and that all what you said is helpful, but I kind of do that and sometimes I feel like, well, I'm practicing all the time, but my
Hmm.
mind is still sometimes if I'm not like, come on, it's
Yeah.
still like, but then sometimes it's the opposite side of the spectrum where I don't want to be too like resistant towards whatever's coming up. So I
Mm,
guess sometimes I'm curious about that balance of like, when do I just allow everything to come
yes.
and when do I try to find another way?
That's a really beautiful question. It's yes to both of those things. Um, the part of your mind that is the watcher, the decision maker in this process, cultivating a um, allowing of everything is a beautiful practice. In fact, just let your mind go. All of those things. It's when you fall into a place of unconsciousness. When that happens, you've lost any concept of what's going on. Time just is gone. You were lost. Um, what you have to be careful about, or I would recommend being careful about, is are you struggling in that holding your, like, you kind of sounds like I'm, in that training the puppy to come back, watching those thoughts. Are you getting frustrated? Is that bringing you back a source of annoyance? Like, are you getting annoyed about it? Is that what you mean? Like, is that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. No, actually, I don't think I get annoyed, but sometimes I'm like, am I being too lenient? like is this should I be trying to have more, I don't know, just not allow so much freedom? I just find that that question is coming up more recently.
It's beautiful. There's a teaching that I work with that says, we are way too tolerant of our mind wandering. And that a disciplined practice is really quite helpful because the egoic mind is never stopping. It goes 24/7. So how much effort do we want to put in taming that, in taming the mind? That's a really great question. I think you got to kind of feel that out on your own as you go. Um, there certainly have been times when I have, like, early on especially, where I would like, I'd get into like a really, like, almost like a battle position with my mind, and I'd sit there and I'd watch it, and I'd be like, thought, 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 like, again, and I would, and you know, oh, arms itching, eyes thing, go here, and it would be just so, and it was interesting and it helped, but I find taking a gentler approach is always going to be, unless you feel called to do like just that, and make it playful. Really, I used to do exercises myself when I was meditating. Like, all right, I'm going to see how slowly I can breathe in like a meditative breath, how few breaths I can take in 1 minute, or how long can I count my breaths, and until I lose count, and like things like that, where I would do them as exercises in play to try and lighten like this what can seem like a very serious practice. Does that make sense to everybody? Um, but then ultimately, I found that the most useful thing in meditation was simply to sit and watch and notice if I'm getting upset or if I'm feeling good, and then every time just keep coming back to just observing, um, in the meditation. There are certainly other times and in other practices where I will actively engage with my mind. Contemplative practices or the journaling practices and things that I will do to help get to the root of belief systems and things that maybe aren't serving me anymore. But in the meditation, it becomes just a place of respite and surrender. You know. No, sure. Anyone else? Did that trigger anything for anybody? Any questions for anyone? Okay. So this idea of this week, right? This deepening presence. Deepening presence is something we really want to talk about. And like I said earlier, this is a practice of ever deepening. It's an ever deepening practice. So I would encourage, this is just my own personal kind of approach to it, to maybe not think so much about how evolving yourself to something else. Because it implies that who and what you are right now is not perfect. And what you are and who you are right now is perfect. You've just kind of forgotten that. Most of us have just kind of forgotten that. What has happened, and we talked about this a little last time, in our last hour class, is that there is this pureness of an innocence and beautiful expansiveness of what you came into this world with. That's kind of your nature. And it was really what we took in from seemingly from the outside, that made us kind of squash that down. So we're not necessarily evolving to a place where we suddenly can levitate and, leave this plane. It's really more like we are re accessing the part of our mind that is at peace. We're enabling our ability to to kind of take dominion back over the part of our mind that has been criticizing us for so long. And your ego really is not your best friend in this regard. Because how many people, you can just raise your hand, like, have thoughts in their own head about themselves that are not healthy, where they beat themselves up. I certainly do it. Somewhere along the line, you learned that, and you learned that the voice that's telling you that in your head is telling you the truth. That that's sad for all of us. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy that we have come to not only believe ourselves to be so broken, but that we tell ourselves it almost on an incessant loop. Um, and I encourage you through this practice to learn to listen to that voice, not because it's telling you the truth. Learn to listen to it so that you can understand that there is you, the the witness to that, the watcher, and this voice that's speaking. And like, and that's no different than someone standing across the room telling you something, or someone on a telephone telling you something. That voice is not you. It's just a belief you have about yourself. It's a program that's running, like an app on your phone. It's not you. In fact, you can look at, Twitter or Instagram or any of these things and look at the ego in action, and how you sometimes can't put that phone down because you just want to see the next post, the next post. What is it going to say? Does it affect me? And like you watch it, the voice in your head is doing that and has been doing that your whole life. This is just seems to be like an external version of that. So we're learning to not believe that voice outside of ourselves. There's a teacher, Adyashanti, who I love, and he says he doesn't believe any of his thoughts, anything that his mind tells him, he doesn't believe them because he lives in a place of presence. And that's what we're going to start to work with, is trying to develop that presence. So I've spoken enough. Let's um, let's start to work with this a little bit. Um, I have turned off my like I have my sound here so that I have my singing bowl. Hopefully it'll ring enough that you'll be able to hear it. Um, we'll do our best to see how this works. This is an exercise I usually, when I've done in person, it allows the singing bowl to kind of ring, and the hope is that as it rings, you're able to hear it. But it's okay if you don't hear it ringing, because sometimes the sound cuts out. But you'll hopefully hear this. Everybody hear that? At least the dong of it? Yeah? Okay. So in this exercise, we're doing this exercise is learning to kind of separate ourselves from our thoughts and creating a little distance and perspective. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you're comfortable, closing your eyes, and and if not, then just gaze outward at maybe a blank space if possible. Um, we don't necessarily want any distractions, things like bouncing around. And if your eyes are closed, I want you to get this sense that there's like a doorway, or almost like a mouse hole even, or a little like a little gate. And what's coming through this portal, let's call it a portal, it's probably a better word. There's coming through this portal are thoughts. Like your thoughts are actually coming through the portal. Maybe you'll see them, maybe you'll just get the sense of them. If you're not visual, it's okay. Just get the sense that there is you in this place, and you are watching in anticipation of thoughts coming at you. And I'm going to say, in a moment, I'm going to say, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. And then I'm going to ring the bell. And when I ring the bell, and as I'm saying that, as I'm saying, I wonder what my next thought is going to be, I want you to get really alert and watch and see, once I ring that bell, paying attention to see what that first thought is that comes in. What's that very first thought that comes in? All right, so get comfortable and breathe. Take a few breaths in and out through your nose, and let everything settle for a minute. And as you're settling, I want you to invite you to get the sense that you're stepping back from the body just a little bit, just as if you were falling back into the space behind you, like just pulling back a little. And there's a watcher, witness. There's an abiding presence. It's the part of you that's been with you all along. It's the same you that was there when you were 5. It's the same you that was with you when you were 10. It's the one that made the mistakes. It's the one that did wonderfully. It's the one that's lived your life and has never not been with you. It's not the thinking part of your mind. And so as you look and gaze outward gently and softly, I'll ask you this question, and I want you to get very alert and listen. I wonder what my next thought is going to be. thought for most of us probably came in pretty quickly. It may have been an actual thought. It may have been like the world never stopped talking. It may have been, I wonder what that thought is going to be, the thought of that. Who knows? For you, whatever it was is what it was. We're going to try it again. And I want you to just get very still. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to do this a few times, but we're going to do it again now. And then we're going to talk about it and get some feedback. I wonder, get alert, watch. I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is come back for a moment, open your eyes, and I want to hear from you. It helps me and kind of move it forward. I want to hear from anyone. I see a smile on Dawn's face over there. I'm curious, was there, what was that like for you, first off? Was it weird? Did it make no sense? Or was there any space from the bell to a thought, and were you aware of any space there? So let me hear from anyone. Leah, go ahead.
So I thought I didn't think I was repeating that. I wonder what my next thought is. I wonder what. So it continued kind of like after the bell. I'm not even sure why I did that, but that's what happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. And
Like a
but
mantra.
right, and you were aware of that. You knew that when you saw it happening. What part of you saw it happening? What part of you is aware of that? That's something to sink into a little bit. That's not something you can necessarily answer even, just something to sink into. All right. Who, Manny, I saw you had your hand up.
For me, it was songs, like just random songs instantly started playing in my head. I literally like, if it's not thoughts, it's music playing in my head. So both times it was just two different songs.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Um, was there any space from the moment the bell rang till the song started? Or was it like right away?
Brief pause.
Brief pause. Okay, cool. I want you to remember that because we're going
Very
to use that.
super brief.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, keep a memory that there was a space. Because in that space, this is what we're learning to cultivate is that space, that place before the thoughts came in. And there's like an emptiness there. So that's something not everybody may have necessarily experienced it, but just that you did, I want you to just kind of not hold on to it like you're grabbing it, but just notice that it was there. Let's see, who else? Who else we got there? Heather, I see you reaching forward.
Sure, I'll say something. The second time, the second round, there was more space
Okay.
in the first one, which was great. And I also had this realization that I have so many more thoughts than I realized. Like probably 5 or 6 thoughts within like 5 seconds.
Right.
I was like, what? What is happening? And then
Yes.
I also realized, like, gosh, I believe everything I think all the time, or at least
Oh,
lately.
yeah.
Maybe not throughout my life, but at least lately, I believe it so much, and I don't have to. I don't have to believe everything I think.
That's very true. That's beautiful, beautiful insight. Yes. Um, Thank you. And now, what would in the space, in the gap, what did that feel like in the space before the thoughts came in? Were you able to describe what it feels like?
Just I think just being. Um, it's interesting because I was also trying not to. I wasn't trying to force anything, so I wasn't like stay, don't think. I was just like allow it to come if it comes. Um, but it felt sort of, I guess, just pure.
Okay. Okay. Great. Anyone else? Yeah.
I had the same experience as Leah. The second that bell rang, I was like, okay, what's my thought going to be? And
Okay.
then, so I didn't realize have a particular thought other than, okay, I'm going to have a thought. What's that thought going to be? And then I got kind of caught up in that. I don't remember now if there was a space between the bell
Okay.
and the thought, but I remember getting caught up in there's going to be a thought. I wonder what it's going to be. So I was kind of where both times, that's where I was, okay, I'm ready.
Right.
What is it? And it thinking about the thought.
Okay.
So that was my.
And who was thinking it?
I don't know.
Good question. Just something to hold, just something to like kind of keep in your pocket, like as like a little thing there. Dawn, I saw your hand up, and then I saw Kathy's hand up.
I was laughing because I did have a space that was longer than I had anticipated it to be. So that's when I started getting into, well, where are my thoughts? You know? And I started sort of playing with that a little bit, like, you know, and then I was just laughing at myself at where my brain was going with that
No,
question.
that's beautiful. Thank you for hey, please keep a sense of humor. I encourage all of us to keep a sense of humor about this because we do all have a monkey mind. We really do. My thoughts used to be so before I started this process, or actually when I first started watching it even, they were so it was such an onslaught that I would sometimes put my hands over my ears because I couldn't, it was that offensive how intense they were. And something happens as you start to become aware, kind of like what Heather said, um, you start to realize there's so much more thought than you thought was happening. Your mind is a freight train. It is not stopping. Kathy, you had your hand up.
I was a little hesitant to share because I had a little different experience today, because I certainly have monkey mind like everyone else does, but I don't know what you were talking about. I've been doing, today has been like Course in Miracles working this morning. I took Gail's yoga class. Gail and I did Sankalpa meditation on Saturday together as a workshop. And
Nice.
so I've been doing a lot of, that kind of work. And I don't know what you were talking about before you said like seeing ourselves behind us or something. Is that what you were talking about?
Well, stepping back from like what feels like your physical form just a little bit.
And then I had like this vision of myself, of all my past self, kind of like, the rings on a tree when you go back to like,
oh wow,
just being the child in who I am, and everything that brought me to this space of who I am, and put it behind me, sort of weird vision type, so that I could step out of that. And that's like when you said, what is your next thought? That was like I was like pulled back in that kind of way.
Okay.
And then,
very interesting.
Yeah. And then when you rang the bell again and you said, what is your next thought? I was like, wow, that was beautiful.
And every experience is different. So thank you for showing like the range. We have a range of experiences here.
Right. And like, I really attribute so much of it to doing the Course in Miracle works with you, Joe. That's.
Yeah. It's something, for those who don't know, it's something I teach, and I have a class that I teach, and Gail and a few folks here all kind of work on that with me, and Kathy too, and anyway, so we thank you for that. It's
thank you.
it's a beautiful process. Dawn, what you were saying was interesting because it's like it's almost that you're able to keep an amusing perspective is beautiful, because like the ego will come in and be like, what's going on here? You're not thinking, you're not analyzing. And remember, that's what the ego is doing at its most basic level, as a program that's running in your mind before it kind of took over your identity and started berating you. It was really strictly an analysis machine. It's out looking around you and assessing a threat level. It's assessing what who can I trust? What can I trust? What's going on? Is this safe? Is this not safe? Is this enjoyable? Is this not enjoyable? It'll look at something like this, and your ego is part of the function that's trying to understand what this is. It's, oh, don't drop that, because but then it takes it to the next level. Don't drop that. If you drop that, you're an idiot. Don't drop that, it'll break. And if it breaks, oh, you've done something stupid. It used to just be, don't drop that, it'll break. But then somewhere along the line, it took all the beliefs and kept amplifying them and became like this negative talk engine. So we get in touch with these thoughts so much. We try and get in touch with these thoughts so we can start to see that there's something that's not serving you in the way your mind processes are. So I want to do this exercise again. Now that we've talked about it a little bit, did anybody else want to say? Everybody doesn't have to talk, but if you want to, please. I don't want to isolate anybody. Okay. Oh, please, Patricia.
I kind of had the experience of I'm not having any thoughts. What's wrong with me?
No, okay.
And I realized that the point is not to have a thought, but to be able to have a period of time with no thought. Perhaps.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
I was being gentle on myself, but that's
yes. But thank you for sharing that, because yes, like, so what you said is exactly spot on in two ways. One, we're learning to even get a sense that there is a space, even for a brief moment, even a half breath, where there's no thought, and to actually sit in that place and experience it. The second thing you said that was spot on is that your mind, and I said this kind of alluding to what the ego is doing, thinks that it's not right. I'm not doing something right if I'm not thinking. I'm not doing something right if I'm not, coming up with a thought right away. Oh shit, I didn't come up with a thought. Oh my God, what have I done wrong? You're spot on both of those points. There's nothing wrong with you for not having space. We want to get the experience of that space. So that being said, I have my trusty little bowl here. So let's take a breath and close in again. Let's go down and close our eyes and get in, knowing that there is a potential, but without trying to grab onto a space of emptiness, knowing that maybe there is even a millisecond of empty space. And so when I say the words again, I wonder what my next breath is going to be. I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Perhaps as I ring that bell, and when you hear that bell, take a full breath in, pause, and then exhale right as that bell strikes, and then and use that breath to set you in a place of alert watching and see what happens. And if a thought comes, great. You're just watching to see if a thought comes. If it doesn't, you're sitting in the emptiness, sitting in the stillness. All right. Eyes are closed or gazing outward softly. You're feeling yourself here in this place, sensing perhaps the room around you, the cushion under, or the seat behind you, wherever you are. Giving yourself permission to be here. And after I say the word, ring the bell, take a breath, set yourself in alert of watching, and just be. See what happens. I wonder what my next thought is going to be. And again, taking a breath, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Becoming acutely aware of the space within you, in your physical form, around you, and in the spaciousness of the mind. One more time. I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Okay. Now slowly coming back, opening your eyes when you feel ready. And even as you open your eyes, kind of feeling the space around you, like not locking on anything particularly as you open your eyes, but just gently opening your eyes, letting the light in. And feel what feel what your body is like right now. Does this feel like a relaxed place, or does it feel like an agitated place? Whatever that is, we're going to notice it. And I want to hear from you. And we're going to do, after we finish this little bit of chat, we're going to go into like a more guided, I'm going to guide you for about 10 minutes of meditation to close this out. But I want to hear, how was that different for you? Was there a different place that you found in there? Or was that less? Yeah, Kathy, please.
This time was completely different.
That's why we always start over each time.
I had total anxiety about what my next thought was going to be.
Interesting.
Yeah. I felt my body was tense.
Okay.
And then like the second and third time, it was, a little easier, a little more gentle, and able to find a pause, but like I was looking for a pause.
You're looking for a pause. Yeah. Yes.
So that I had the monkey mind this time.
Isn't that amazing, right? Like to go, that's how quickly we will shift. That's why I will say a sense of humor, it can be very helpful in this regard, because you can have what is a beautiful experience in one moment, it feels like you're not even in this world.
Right.
And then in the next moment, you're hyper alert about, wait, whoa, am I doing the right thing?
Right.
And again, what we're always trying to cultivate in that is that kind of identifying, or that watching aspect of yourself. And in time, you will become more and more identified with that watching aspect, and less identified with the noise that's around you. And that's what when I talk about distance, that's kind of what I mean by that. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else with how that felt? Was that like particularly frustrating for anyone? Like Kathy, that sounds like a little frustrating.
Yeah, it was a little frustrating. Anxiety provoking that time.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Leah, please.
I wonder if you would talk a little bit about difference of watching or waiting, because I felt like I was doing both of those sometimes. Like I was waiting for something because the prompt is, I wonder what my next thought will be. But I was watching for that. And then I remember asking the question, then I was like watching. So I'm wondering if you have some insight there.
Well, it's interesting. It sounds like you seem to have two perspectives on that, which is beautiful. There's like, one seems more, is one of those more passive for you and one more active? How would you describe that?
It's more comfortable watching than waiting, because waiting seems like I need something to be done or said or a thought to come.
Yes.
And then so it was nice to watch that was happening. I didn't need to go there and kind of.
Yes.
And maybe I should be, because we prompted. It was almost like contemplation, but watching contemplate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it is, and it's tough. Language can be a barrier for these kind of things. Like so the idea, like I wonder, is like, it can be like, if depending on how you take that, could be like, okay, what's that thought going to be? And like to take it, like I said, an alert posture does feel almost egoic sometimes in that regard. But what you described, and having that contrast in the waiting, that's a beautiful, even a better way to frame it. And that may even change. Having you said that may change the way I kind of explain that in the future. Because it's a waiting, but it's not a waiting like, oh God, sorry, it's a watching. It's not a waiting. It's a watching. It's you're hanging out, and who's hanging out? Who is watching? Who is alert to this or curious about this? And in that watching place, something will come and maybe you see it. There it goes, like a thought. Like we talk about that in meditation sometimes, that thoughts are like clouds or like little boats on a river. And you're chilling out, you know, in anticipation or not, just that something's going to come and maybe it's not going to come. So that's kind of a nice way to explain it. Um, yeah, we are not trying to pry open thoughts. Like we're not trying to like rip open a closet and look in there and say, what are those thoughts? It's more like, okay, I'm here. Who's coming out to play? I want to know, I want to meet you, so that I can understand if you're being helpful or not. Um, Anyone else? Any?
I kind of like the question. For me, it almost like prompted me to like almost like shake my head like a dog does and just like kind of shake out all the thoughts and just kind of fall into a place of peace, I guess. I'm kind of exhaling as you're ringing.
Hmm.
And then I
Yeah.
found again, though, that I feel like there's literally always music playing in my head. So
Hmm.
even as there's thoughts coming in, I still hear music in the background.
That's interesting. So that's really well a good point. And what we have are there's kind of like three levels of of awareness in meditation. The first one, which is the like it's like no awareness. You're totally gone. Like you go to sit and breathe, and your mind gets lost and swept away, or is in a state of constant agitation, and there's no distance between you and those thoughts. That's like kind of like that happens to a lot of us maybe before we meditate, or if we've never meditated, or we're just starting. The next thing that starts to happen is kind of what you were sort of describing is you become aware that there's things happening, but it's not bothering you or distracting you or sweeping you away. So it's like, oh, I'm here, and oh, there's music playing in my mind, but you're not lost or being distracted by that music. It's like it's there and you're aware of it. Or you're aware of a voice that's saying, not nice things in your head, or you're aware that your shopping list keeps coming into your mind, but you're not swept away by it. So that's like the next piece. And then the third kind of bit is a place of no mind, of no thought, of pure being that thoughts may come in once in a while, but you have an experience of sitting in a place of no thought for periods of time, even if those are very, very brief. Right? So yeah, so just it's a cultivating process. For the most of us, we are almost never going to be without some kind of thought happening in our mind at some time. But can we develop the ability to just witness to it, watch them without getting carried away by them and without judging ourselves for that? And in that place, we can find stillness, the stillness that is you, apart from all the stuff that seems to be going on around you. Anyone else? Heather.
I don't know if this is sort of strange, but almost the entire time I had no thought.
Beautiful.
I was able just to feel that stillness.
Yes.
Until maybe the last time I was like, I tried like saying the phrase when you repeated it. I was like, okay, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. I was like, well, that's a thought. you know,
Yeah.
And that was sort of it. And it felt really good, but it was like I could slip into like a river. I could just slip into it really kind of easily. And I guess that comes from my practice. So
Yes.
it was nice to experience.
Thank you. And it does. That's what we start to see. We start to see that space. Is there anyone else who actually was able to experience, even if their thoughts came in like hard and fast eventually, that experienced that little gap, even the littlest gap of stillness? Dawn. Yeah. Patricia, thank you. That so we can't chase after that, but it's to know that it's there. That empty, still place of being is you. That's where the truth of what you are resides. And that you even could experience it for a split second shows you that it's there. And that's with very little, maybe, compared to the hundreds of thousands of hours of time you've spent with your ego and the voices in your head telling you stuff. This is a way to start to cultivate the other side of the equation, the part of your mind that doesn't think, that is in pure being. And there is a well of peace. There's a well of creativity in that place, of insight. There's so much, but oddly enough, in that nothingness, there's so much richness there that I encourage you in your practice to cultivate. Um, so we have like 6 minutes, and I would love to like lead a little more meditation. But if there's anybody who does have a question or want to comment, please, let's take that time. All right, and we're going to kind of continue with this theme throughout the week. This deepening presence. So if you can't close your eyes, we'll do just like a little 5 minutes here. And as you settle in, know that you are a spacious being. I've heard it said in a beautiful way that the universe cannot even contain what you are. And that are-ness, the what you are, is not in what you accomplish. It's not in what you do or what you think even. It is in just what you are prior to all your identification with name and form. It's a state of pure being. Breathing now, in and out through the nose. Watching. Let's watch our mind and our inner space sort of at the same time. So the gaze is through the third eye, that middle of the kind of eyebrows, gazing out from that space. And yet you are aware of your body, the sensations in it. And there's a feeling of just stepping back ever so slightly, pulling back from the body. Sometimes you can do that by sensing the space behind you, the empty space, as if it was like a big fluffy pillow that you were leaning back into of energy, like an energy pillow. I want you to watch and notice any thoughts that come, any songs that play, any feelings in the body that distract you, and watch them from a state of non-judgment if possible. And breathe. And as you sit in this place watching with curiosity, getting a sense of the quality of any chatter or noise, anything that's happening, and if you are judging it. In other words, is it pleasing to you what you're hearing? Is it annoying to you what you're hearing? Are you comfortable? Are you agitated? Who knows this? What part of your mind, of your awareness, knows how you feel at this moment? Notices the sounds or the thoughts? Who knows this? get the sense that this is a place that you can come to again and again to develop like a training ground of sorts, of presence, of deepening presence, becoming more and more gently aware of the things that seem to be going on in your mind and in your form and your emotions, and this watcher. This is a place like a training ground in presence, your meditation, a place of surrendering to your pure being. Giving yourself that permission to use this space so that you can become more and more aware of the workings of your mind, the feelings that you have in your emotions, and the senses that run through your body. All of these can be observed lovingly, curiously from this space. Finally, letting go of that. Becoming aware of the space that you are in, feeling the seat beneath you or behind you. Perhaps rubbing your hands together as you come back, and lightly, gently sipping the light with your eyes as you start to open them. But knowing that you can always leave some of your awareness in this watching place, even when you're moving about your day. We may be cultivating it in our meditation, but we can take it with us anywhere. And I am so grateful to all of you for sticking with us. If you missed anything, I know, Dawn, you were unable to get the links. We had screwed up a little bit with communication. The last weeks are there if anybody wants to meditate, and these will be online as well if you want to come back to them. Does anybody have any questions before we break? All right. I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being with us. Keep practicing. If you have any questions, reach out during the week, and they'll put you in touch with me. Namaste.